Hello, my name is Billy Canning and you're very welcome to Borris Trails. Hello there and you're very welcome to episode 3. And in today's episode we'll look at Borris's historic association with the railway and the continuing story of the viaduct.
While the track no longer exists along the Borris Railway and large portions of the old line have given way to agricultural or industrial use, the railway's previous path is visible on the local landscape, and while not easily accessible for large portions, we'll trace a route roughly following the railway's previous journey through Borris.
Our journey today begins here at Ballinagree Bridge on the main Borris to Bagenalstown Road, and this is one of the 11 granite bridges that exists over the 8-mile stretch of the railroad from Bagenalstown to Borris.
Taking a step back, Carlow has a starring role in the Irish railway history. In 1834, the first railway in Ireland was designed by a Carlow man, William Dargan, for Dublin. He also designed the Dublin to Carlow route, which was then extended to Kilkenny. This was at the start of the railway boom, where towns residing along railway routes would flourish. Fortunes were there to be made and lost. The Carlow to Kilkenny route was originally planned to go through Loughlin Bridge, but through the promise of money and land, a forward-thinking Colonel Bagnall persuaded a change to go via Bagenalstown instead. At the same time, a route was required to go from Dublin to Wexford. One route had already begun but encountered many difficulties in Bray. It was decided to extend the line from Bagenalstown to Wexford. Art MacMurrough of Borris House gave land for the railway as he saw its potential to attract business to the locality. This is where the story of the Borris line begins. The first sod of the Bagenalstown and Wexford Railway was cut by Lady Harriet Kavanagh, mother of Arthur MacMurrough Kavanagh, on New Year's Day 1855. It took 3 years to complete the track from Bagenalstown to Borris, a total of 8 miles. The route from Bagenalstown to Borris passed through mostly flat terrain following the River Barrow.
We've walked from the Ballinagree Bridge along Bog Lane and we'll meet up with the remains of the line at a point where there used to be an old level crossing. Well, here we are on where the level crossing actually was. And it's hard to imagine during those times that 2 trains would go in each direction daily, ferrying passengers and goods along this route. And during the start-up period, the railway ran just to Borris. Passengers would finish their journey to Wexford by a stagecoach.
The route from Bagenalstown through Borris to Wexford would be 68 kilometres long when finished. William Lefanu was the designer and he designed a very good but very expensive railway. The wonderful granite stonework and craftsmanship on the station buildings in Borris is testament to Lefanu's exacting and high standards of building throughout the whole line. There were to be no sharp turns, no gradient steeper than 1 in 100, and all of its bridges wide enough for double track.
The remarkable architectural detailing and skills of Carlow's stonemasons is also very evident everywhere at Borris Station and its ancillary buildings, which we're now approaching. The station would originally have consisted of the station building itself and the platform, the pump house, the station master's house, the signal box and goods shed and cattle pens. And following closure of the line in the 1960s, the station yard was converted to terraced housing, still bearing the name Station Road. The station building, station master's house and goods sheds are all now in private ownership as private dwellings.
As we leave Borris Station, looking out towards the Black Stairs, it becomes evident that there was a serious challenge ahead. It would take a further 9 years for the next southern section to be completed to Palace East. Many bridges, embankments, gorges, and of course the impressive Borris Viaduct would have to be constructed if the line was to keep to its designer standards.
Well, here we are on what's known as the new road from Borris to Garryhill, and we're at the site of the old girder bridge that used to carry trains from the far embankment across and into the station here at Borris. And as you can see, the stonemasons were kept busy.
The elevated positioning of the embankment opened up the vista of South Carlow to the train traveller at the time. We can look back over Borris to the right, while to our left, as we look out past Scart, we can see the full panorama of Mount Leinster and the Black Stairs.
Without doubt, the most stunning remnant of the Borris line is the Borris Viaduct. Built at a cost of £20,000 at the time, which is approximately €2 million now, its purpose was to span the Mountain River Valley. It took 2 years to complete, has 16 arches and rises to 60 feet above the uneven ground. The pillars are made from limestone, with the rest of the structure composed of dressed granite held together with lime mortar. The stone was sourced from Perry's Land, from a quarry nearby.
The area directly beneath the viaduct was the location for Scartine Mill, a large corn and flour mill during the 18th and 19th centuries. A weir and mill race harnessed the power of the river to drive the mill wheels. Remains of the mill buildings and walls can still be seen in the area below us. This granary building is all that remains of the Scartine corn and flour mills. Corn was spread across the 4 floors to dry prior to the being ground for milling and making flour. Curved wooden scaffolding was placed on the ground and the arches built upon them. No modern machinery apart from a steam crane could have been available at the time. It had to be built solid, as laden wagons could weigh up to 10 tons each, and a full rake could consist of 13 wagons. It's thought that up to 1,000 stone cutters, masons, carters, engineers, cleavers and labourers were involved in the construction. Borris and its surroundings prospered during this period. A fantastic nature trail circles one end of the viaduct, enabling the visitor to go from the top to the bottom of this structure. Several informative boards chart the history of the viaduct for the visitor along the viaduct walk. In recent years, the 31st of December, Borris has welcomed throngs of revellers to celebrate the new year with its annual fireworks display, with the viaduct providing the stage.
Behind the viaduct, just past Haggerty's Bridge, which is what we're currently on, lies the cutting. Completely overgrown now, but there are plans to reopen as a modern greenway.
Picking a route through Kilcoltrim Hill was to be a major challenge. An army of workers mined through the hard limestone cutting using pickaxes, crowbars and shovels. Gunpowder was used for rock blasting, quarrying to a depth of 80 feet in places. A number of workers were injured in excavating the Kilcoltrim cutting by rock falls, and one worker was blinded directly as a result of flying debris following the blasting in the cutting. When completed, the cutting was checked regularly for falling rocks by a Waterford Cliff gang, and many a serious rail accident was prevented by observant milesman rail workers. Streams run along both sides of the track through the cutting.
So we've made our way up through the overgrowth in the cutting to look at this deep rock-faced gorge that trains snaked their way through in the early part of the last century. And carrying on south along the cutting is the High Bridge of Kilcoltrim, right here behind me. And it was from here the railway left the vicinity of Borris, heading towards Ballywilliam, and there are many remnants of similar stone bridges remaining along that route, with a significant number of them documented in the late Father Pierce Murphy's book, The Ducks of Borris.
Unfortunately, by the time the line reached Ballywilliam in 1864, the money had run out and the line closed. As if to heap more misery on the investors, another line along the coast from Dublin to Wexford had now got through, built for a lot less money than the Bagenalstown-Wexford Railway. Had Lefanu chosen a cheaper route and won the race, who knows, we could still be looking at the main Dublin-Wexford line passing close to here. But undoubtedly the marvel that is the viaduct structure would not have been built, nor the Kilcoltrim cutting excavated. The railway line first closed in 1871 until Arthur Kavanagh bought it in 1874. It was ultimately economically unviable and eventually taken over by one of the main railway companies. The line was used into the 20th century with one daily passenger and one daily goods train. Farmers along the line were often thrown purchases or newspapers while the train was passing. The line closed in 1922 during the Civil War, reopening shortly afterwards. A lifeline was thrown to the railway in 1926 when the sugar factory opened in Carlow. Beet grown by local farmers was collected in sidings along the route to be transported via Bagenalstown to the factory during the annual beet campaign. Cars were now beginning to take a foothold, and in 1931 the passenger service was closed apart from sporadic trips to Croke Park or Knock. The majority of goods traffic stopped in 1944, apart from sugar beet and a few cattle loads going to Borris Fair. The last train on the line was a special from Bagenalstown to Borris Fair on March the 25th, 1963, the A4 locomotive. With diesel locomotives now replacing steam, CIE, which had taken over Irish Railways, began to rationalise the network. In 1963, the line officially closed and the tracks and rails were lifted and sold off shortly afterwards. After a century of use, the little railway died off quietly. Local engineering company Keenan's purchased a significant amount of the rails, and these were repurposed as supports in hay sheds distributed throughout Ireland, many of which still stand today.
It's said that the viaduct will last as long as the Roman Colosseum, so we'd expect many people to come visiting Borris for many years to come, and I'll be here waiting for you.